And
Yeah.
if for some reason like this doesn't work out, because again, this is just more about the company and getting in, and because I am certified as a product owner and I like it.
Hmm.
If I decide not to go that route and I decide to go the Scrum Master route, the other
Hmm.
question that I had is it impossible to think that I could ever shadow like a scrum master because it's a company thing and there's probably like probably I'm like Malin, like my confidence is just not there. And I'm like, if I could just watch a scrum master do their job for like a week or a day, I could say, yeah, I can do that versus like learning textbook like we did. Does that make sense?
Well, what I would say to you is okay, so a few things. One, find a way to do Scrum yourself. You'll learn a lot more by doing it yourself. Okay?
I have been since class.
Okay, great. So now you do that. That's going to teach you a heck of a lot more. The reason why I say that is because you don't know who you're going to be following. I'm going to say, yes, it would be great to be able to follow a Scrum Master any place. Okay? But depending on what day you follow them, has a huge impact. When do you want to follow a Scrum Master? Like on days when they're doing sprint planning,
Right.
on days that they have a review or retrospective. That's when you're going to get the major meat out of anything that you're doing. Okay. Now, do companies let people come in and do that? Most don't. Most don't. Because they don't want to let you see the secret sauce, but there's no real secret sauce back there. But they don't want to let you see the secret sauce, right? But there's nothing really secret about it, right? So, you know, come join us for our Wednesday sprint review and sprint retrospectives because
I'm
I
there.
try
You
my
just
best.
I'm next
Okay,
to
you
my
just
husband.
okay, then you're good then. A lot of what we're doing there, if you look at how I'm managing it, like keeping to the timeline is a good example. Our focus is not talking about that stuff that's not focused for this sprint. I'm trying to manage it so and then you're getting some benefit out of seeing what a scrum master would be doing in sprint planning, for example, on a sprint review. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
so I'm doing that, which is modeling the same thing. I also want you to remember that during the class, I did that for you.
Mhm.
So
I remember.
remember, we had a sprint, right? We had a sprint. And you remember, for example, in sprint planning, I say to you, consider capacity, how much time you have available to get work in a sprint. Make sure the team has an understanding of that. Great. Get a sprint goal. Pull from that product backlog to create that sprint backlog. All those things are things that you'll be doing. Think about where you're going. Think about your forecast. Think about where you've been, what you did the last sprint, the prior 2, 3 sprints, right? Where you need to go in the future. All that stuff are the same exact things that we would do on the ground inside of an organization. The only difference is we was doing it on the knowledge of Scrum versus some other product. Okay. Now, in terms of organizations allowing that to happen, I just don't see it happening that way. Now, in terms of could I get into an organization entry level and they have a bunch of scrum masters working around? If I was you, what I would do is go after a really big company that's doing scrum,
Okay.
not little bitty ones, right? And the reason why I say that is because big companies got money to throw away. And they don't mind people learning under them because they're likely going to pay you less, but they need a body to get the work done. So it's no different than the big accounting firms. They pull a bunch of college students in and then they work them to death. Those college students aren't very knowledgeable, but they work them to death because they need to get the time in to get the billable hours in to get a few things done. So start looking for those bigger companies like the big banks. That's always a good place to go. The big insurance companies, the big gas and oil companies, right? Start looking for these big companies that just got too much money. And they always are doing something. Does that make
Okay.
sense? And
Yes.
so those are the places. Now again, here in my career, Allstate. State Farm, Capital One, USAA, Sears. You understand? You see a pattern, right? You see that
Right.
pattern. Big company, big company, big company, big company, big company, big company. Because at a big company, I can hide a little bit and I'm protected by the system that's around me. And I can take time to actually learn. So I would recommend shooting for a bigger company versus a smaller company because in a smaller company, they're going to expect you to produce much faster.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And I like that kind of angle of maybe even opening my horizon to entry level of just getting in with a company and then moving and
Let me t-
trying to
so let me give you the real, right? So State Farm, I was with State Farm for 2 years. I went to Capital One there for 6 months. Left Capital One, went to USA 6 months. Went to Sears 2 3 months. See my pattern? You understand? Because again, I learned what I needed to learn and I moved on, right?
Right.
And so there's nothing that stops you from doing that. So that's how I'd be thinking. So if it's me and I'm starting brand new, I am probably going to be looking at big companies where they can give me a little bit more security. I can go down to the gym every day. They're not going to be fussed if I'm not there every single minute, right? So that's how I'm looking. And for a lot of people that I know, they're kind of with the bigger companies,
Hmm.
especially if they're kind of newish. So that's what I would be thinking about. Big companies, it's a lot of them there, a lot of Scrum Masters. You're going to be doing Scrum Butt, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Everybody's doing Scrum Butt. And as long as you're fine with that, you'll be good to go.
And would you do it when you're saying the big companies? Would you apply for entry level Scrum with these big companies, or would you
I
just
apply
try to
for
get in?
anything that gets me
Mm,
in the door because the one thing that you can do inside of big companies, well, the two things you can do is move around in big companies based on whatever rules they have in place and you can leave.
right.
It's always easier to get a job when you have a job.
Yes.
It just is what it is, right? So just get in, do what you need to do, and make a decision about what you're going to do next, right?
Mhm.
So that's how I would approach it. Now, just so everybody on the internet understands, Fatima, she gets a job with you, she's going to be there the next 20 years. She'll be there the next 20 years. Does that make sense? But you understand where I'm coming from. That's how I would
Right.
approach it. Big company and grow with them. And then you can
Yeah.
decide what you want to do, and then you get the benefits and everything else. And those benefits are a plus, right? I mean, they normally will give you fairly decent benefits. And then you'll get vacation and all those good things that you need to get and not be the focal point. If you don't show up one day, guess what? Everything's not falling apart.
Right.
Make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. It's very comforting because again, this is not my background and it's different being out of work for so long and trying to go into it. It's just comforting to know that it doesn't, once I find a job as a product owner or a scrum master, it's not the end all be all that I have options and it's so
Yeah.
good to have options.
Don't worry about title. Okay. Most people on their LinkedIn profile or their resume, they don't have the exact title that was hired at. They really don't. And not that they're lying, it's just a lot of times it's not descriptive enough. And so don't worry about title. Just worry about getting in someplace, doing a little bit of scrum, and being able to position it as you choose to. A lot of times for me, my title wasn't anywhere near that, but I found my scrum niche.
Hmm.
You understand? And as long as you can find your scrum niche, you're fine.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was easy. Fatima, thank you for asking a question. You need something, you know how to reach out to me.
Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks,
All right,
Devon, for
thank you. You have a good night, okay? Thank you.